Raider Nation, what's going on? It's your boy Chris with Protect the Shield podcast, where my opinions might not always be popular, but they'll always be authentic. Man, appreciate everybody that's in the building today, man. I got a real special guest. Got my guy, Mitch Renz, in the building. But before I bring him up, man, as always, man, I always got to do my salute to the Shield Squad, man. Salute to everybody that's in the building. Got my boy Rick Rock in the building, man. Appreciate you coming through, my guy. Let's see who I got. My guy Nod in the building. Appreciate you, my friend. Got my boy AR Alfakasi in the building. Make sure you guys check out his content. It's my guy from across the pond, man. Salute to you. Let's see. Got my boy Talano Raider 16, man. Appreciate you, man. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that Carr stuff, man. Salute the Carr, though. Salute the Carr. Robert Pena in the building, man. Appreciate you coming through. Got Raider Ryan in the building. Got my boy Yaya in the building, Dixon in the building. Appreciate you all. Sin Cal, Grizzly Raider in the building. He said, what's good? Fresno in the building. Salute to you. Got my guy, Raider Nation, Jason in the building. Salute, my friend. Got the first lady of the Shield Squad, Myra G, in the building. What's going on? Brian Rodriguez. Yes, Carr did retire. We're going to talk about that, man. I'm going to see what y'all think. Toddy in the building. Salute. Let's see who else, man. Got my boy Matt in the building. I got a lot of you guys in the building, man. But you know, I'll get to most of you guys as like when I get a chance. But I know you guys are tired of hearing from me because I got a special guest in the building. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring my guy out. Got my boy Mitchell Renz in the building. What's going on, Mitch? How you doing, man?
Appreciate the invite, man. I hope that someday I get to make that legendary intro that you got with all the people. It was really kind of cool to see over the years, you know, the amount of people that you had, and I hope get to make that someday. But appreciate the invite. Shout out to the nation. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting day. I figured we'd get one or two Derek Carr questions, but hopefully we keep it good in the chat with when it comes to deep
for sure, man. Yeah, that's yeah, for sure. And honestly, we'll actually kind of open. Actually, you know what? We'll wait a little bit for that. You know, first I want to talk about I know everyone pretty much knows you. You know, if you guys don't know Mitch, man, you guys are under a rock, man. But I want to know, you know, kind of before we get into the Raider content, you know, how did you get to start? And you know, like how did you get into the industry and the business, and what kind of sparked your initial interest?
Yeah, so my family is super into fantasy football, and we've been doing a fantasy football league all the way back from 2006, and we do it on CBS, so it actually keeps our stats from the very first year in 2006. But my grandfather, he passed away from cancer a few years ago, so we took a bunch of his old softball trophies, melted them down. My family, we're like from the middle of Sticks, Pennsylvania, so they know how to do that kind of stuff. And melted down a trophy, and it's literally like my family is the fantasy football show of how crazy we are about fantasy. So I had the opportunity to move over to Germany in 2016, and I really miss talking about football, you know, because football over there is soccer. So I would record myself when I would bike to baseball practice, and it was a good 35, 40-minute bike ride. And honestly, it was therapeutic to me. I was like, man, I would love to be able to figure out how to do this. So I moved back. My dad made a podcast literally in the attic of our room, and I tried to do that for, probably like 6 or 7 months. Had the opportunity then to move to Boston, learned a little bit about marketing and build my brand. Got the opportunity in Chat Sports in 2017. And then, had the opportunity to just kind of get to know Raider Nation from going out to Oakland, from being, in the Coliseum in 2019. And now we're here chopping it up, talking all stuff Raiders. But, I mean, that story could be 30 minutes longer, which I'm sure everybody's story could be a little bit longer, but that's probably the condensed version.
No, that's fire, man. That's fire. And it's and one thing about the Raider Nation, man, it's there's such a passionate fan base. Because me personally, I actually am from Ohio, so I was born and raised in Ohio. My dad was a diehard Cleveland Browns fan, so I know what a passionate fan base looked like. But I always kind of geared towards the Bo Jacksons of the world and stuff like that, and I just became a diehard. Yeah, that was my guy. That was the one that kind of converted me over, man. But no, that's awesome kind of hearing your story, man. But let's get into the elephant in the room, man. I know I was shocked. I kind of heard some rumors that it could potentially happen, but I really didn't think too much of it. But Derek Carr, we hear about Derek Carr announces his retirement due to that shoulder surgery. what are your thoughts, man? Like, what are things, I know you kind of got some insiders and, did you see this thing coming? Is this a complete shock to you, or what's your thoughts here?
I mean, I'll be real. I have no insiders in terms of Derek Carr or
Yeah.
anything in that relationship. That family, honestly, Derek's the only one that, like, I would say probably likes me from the Carr family.
Oh, man.
At this point, I don't really know. I think the whole Carr situation was a weird one. You saw reports from Diana Rossini a few months ago about, like, there's people that think that he's faking it. And I know for the Saints fans, just from, covering it here at Chat Sports, we got a lot of guys. I think Saints fans are happy to move on from DC just because that contract, they kind of want to get it moving. But at the end of the day, like, I don't know. I would love for the opportunity for the Raiders to sign him for a one-day contract. Because I don't give a shit, like, what you think about Derek Carr. Like, there's a big difference between thinking Derek Carr is an awesome human being, because everybody watching here thinks he's an awesome human being. But just because you don't want him to play quarterback for your football team doesn't mean that you think that he's a bad guy. I think he always wanted to be a Raider. I think he'll always be a Raider in my mind. And quite frankly, like, there's nobody that I probably more, like, player-wise. Max has been a great, asset to me. But Derek Carr is the number one person that helped me grow my name, my brand amongst Raider Nation, because, like, early in the content days when it was only me and a few other guys out there, like, we talked about Derek Carr a lot because it's quarterback drama. So, I mean this, like, I have the utmost respect for Derek Carr, and I wish him nothing but the best, and I would love for him to retire a Raider.
Yeah,
for sure. One-day contract. Contract.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And honestly, that's, Derek's actually the reason I actually started my channel, my brand, because I got so tired of just the civil war of the fan base. Like, that was the first time that I really saw our fan base kind of put player over the Shield. And I got so tired. And I'm like, man, we got to protect the Shield, man. The Shield got to come first. So that's literally what got me started. Like, just, being in Facebook groups and arguing with people. And I'm like, dude, like, do we not care about, like, do we really love Carr more than we love the Shield? And it just drove me nuts. So, but the thing is, I've always liked Carr, like, and it was unfortunate, when he had that injury, because, his whole game changed, kind of similar to how Carson Palmer did. He got real antsy when people got close to him and stuff like that. But, I never hated Carr. Towards the end, I don't like how things shaked out. I know some people blame, McDaniels, but, some part of it, I think Carr has to take some accountability as well. So, but, salute the Carr, man. I definitely hope, he retires a Raider, and, that's where he should end up for sure.
Yeah. And, I think, like, when you watch a player blossom, from Fresno all the way into, early in the Raider days, because I actually think it's one of the most unfortunate things that happened in an NFL player's career, genuinely, just because I think Derek Carr, could have won multiple Super Bowls. Like, I think he could have won, honestly, potentially multiple MVPs. I mean, he was an MVP candidate in 2015, 2016, and then, it switched quick. Like, you can't – if there was a quarterback that was doing what Derek Carr is doing, and, there's guys in today's day and age, honestly, like, what Derek was able to do in his first 3 years of the NFL, like, people would buy into that and be like, that's a top 5 quarterback. And,
for sure.
To see the injury, really sad.
Yeah, it did, and it changed his game so much, because Derek is athletic. He's more athletic.
Swagger. I don't care what anybody says. He lost the swagger a little bit.
Yeah, he absolutely did. And again, it's not, like I said, other quarterbacks in history have done that too. And I really think about like Carson Palmer. Like, he really became almost a shell of himself when anyone got close to that knee. So, but it is what it is, man. But how do you think he'll be remembered as a Raider? Do you think at some point the Raider Nation will come together and at least appreciate the good that he did do?
I mean, I think, time heals wounds in a sense. And I agree with you, where in, like, 2022, I think it could have ended, differently, where I honestly think, like, Derek Carr would say, I could have done things a little bit differently. And the Raiders, obviously, and McDaniels could have done things differently too. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time, I hope Raider Nation, always remembers, like, the good that was Derek, because he was the face of a franchise. I wish that the defense could have been better. It's a real shame that it never was good. But at the same time, like, I am a believer that sometimes guys are made to lead. And, I don't know if Derek Carr is somebody that's going to fire me up inside of a huddle. I've had the opportunity to talk to, multiple Raiders players. And, when it got kind of down there at the end of his career, people were like, listen, Derek is an outstanding human being. He's a great leader. But, I mean, I had one Raiders offensive lineman tell me, like, it's time for us to move on, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's also a very, split thing, because there was a lot of guys in the locker room that were like, you're not going to find a better quarterback than Derek Carr. Like, good luck trying to do it. And, we
had
did
trouble
for multiple years. I do think Geno Smith is a lot better than what people realize, and I'm excited for people to see Geno, because confidently, I think it's the best quarterback that the Raiders have had probably since like that 1 year, 2021 with DC, where he had like 27 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. But then back in 2016, Geno with the regime that we have, I think is going to make people forgive Derek Carr, because I think right now one of the reasons why people don't forgive DC is because our quarterback has been so bad, and we just haven't been winning. So when you're not winning, people like to, complain. It's just the way that it is.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, salute to Derek, man. I definitely hope everything is good just from a body standpoint, and I'm sure he'll whatever he wants to do, whether it's coaching or maybe even being media, he'll be fine. Yeah,
if every guy in here right now and every woman would sign up for the way that his next 50, 60 years are going to look like, you know what I mean? Like, I love covering the Raiders, but if you told me I can take Alex, Chuck, with that amount of money in my back pocket,
we're out.
Dude, I love it, but I'm gonna be honest. You're gonna see a lot more random shows for some tropical places. That's all I'm gonna say.
For sure. So let's talk about the offseason, man. And I know we're not gonna get like too detailed in it, because I know you've talked to great lengths about everything, but I do kind of want to ask you, like, what were your top 5 moves that the Raiders made during the entire offseason circuit? And that's like including everything, whether it's, front office, trade, free agency, specific draft picks, all that. Just, I know you can probably go way more than 5, but let's just give me your top 5. It don't got to be in no order.
No, you're okay. Honestly, the first thing that popped in my head is hiring John Spytek at general manager with Pete Carroll. And I say that because, you have to hire somebody. Like, if you're going to hire Pete, I said earlier in the process that it's a very risky hire, because if you're the Raiders, you failed to get one head coach right. When you hire Pete, you're kind of hiring 2, because he's 71 years old. So, like, you got to basically get 2 right. But what the Raiders were able to do by just building the staff, and I know it was a huge nut punch when we didn't get Ben Johnson, but I said this, like, I think honestly, if you told me Ben Johnson or John Spytek, Pete Carroll, Patrick Graham, and Chip Kelly, I think I honestly sign up for this. Like, and I love what we were able to do. And I think that we are operating like a smart organization. And that's just one of those things that we haven't had for a long time. So that's move right there. I think going out and trading for Geno Smith gives us a legit quarterback, where if I had to rank him right now, he's number 14 on my rankings, but I think he's got legit top 10 upside, which I don't think a lot of people can say. And, when you have Chip Kelly and you have our offense, I think that's got to be up there. I think extending Max Crosby, when you extend Max Crosby, that tells everybody in the entire world that we're trying to win right now. And there was a lot of question marks of whether, that was going to happen. And I'm proud that the Raiders did right by Mad Max, but they also, told a lot of people, hey, we're trying to win in this 3-year window with Pete. And I think it makes a lot of sense. And the Crosby deal really helps me understand what the Raiders' plan is with Pete, because, when you give somebody an extension, you usually backload it, right? Like, that's what teams do.
Right.
They front-loaded Max's contract. So it's 38 in year 1, 32, and then it's 27 with 0 guaranteed. You lower Max Crosby's contract that year because Pete's trying to get that 4th year. And, I think that's what that's saying. Max is saying, hey, if we're not a Super Bowl caliber team in 2 years, I have 0 guaranteed. I can get out of it. I'm more tradable. Right. So I think it's extending Max Crosby. I'll be real. I think going out and getting a guy like Ashton Genty, and I say this twofold, where I know I wanted Armin Membu, but just the human being that Ashton Genty is and the dynamicness it's going to add to our offense, on top of the fact of, drafting Genty. And I know there's a lot of Raiders fans that wanted Shedeur Sanders, but I'm happy that the Raiders passed on Shedeur, only because I'm a Geno believer. Like, I don't care if you believe in Shedeur or not. Like, that's a totally different conversation. I believe in Geno, and I want the nation, for the first time since I've ever been covering the Raiders, to be dedicated to one quarterback and one quarterback only. It's always been this guy, this guy, this guy. No, we got to be together. We got to be a team. So I think going out and getting Genty was a really, really smart move. And then if I had to go one more on top of that, oh man, there's a lot that I just threw at you. How How about also, I'll do one that's kind of recent. The Raiders recently hired Anthony Patch and Brian Stark. Brian Stark's done a great job from Denver, helping build through the draft. And I think if we're going to do this the right way, we got to be able to build in the draft. Plus, you steal somebody from the AFC West and the Broncos. And Howie Roseman has always been somebody that I loved in the NFL because he always proves that he's got a set of nuts on him. And I think you got to have a set of nuts to win in the NFL. Yeah. And he goes out there and he gets his guys, which, sometimes people don't like that. But if you're confident in what you do, go out and get your guy. And they just stole Anthony Patch, who was literally the right-hand man to Howie Roseman, who worked with Spy Tech. So I think in all-encompassing, those are my top 5 moves.
No, I love it. I love it, man. And honestly, it really hit home when you were saying, because me personally, like, of course, I wanted Ben Johnson. But then when you think about, like, the Pete move, just him retaining Patrick Graham, to me, that was a big deal. That's a huge deal.
I want a PG more than I wanted Antonio Pierce last year, and that's not a disrespectful thing to AP. It's just, AP got fired to be a head coach. Nobody hired him. Patrick Graham gets a raise to be the defensive coordinator. I think it's just PG is one of the most underrated coaches in the NFL, and it's why I actually was so pissed off the way Jacksonville did him dirty. And again, they wanted Liam Cohen. That's fine. Yeah. But I really did think that PG deserves to be a shot. Like, I think he's a top 40 head coach candidate in the NFL.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was just kind of thinking like my top 5. So mine was one, just hiring Pete. Because again, I think that I did want Ben Johnson, but I think as a young coach, and if I was his agent, why would I want him to go to the Raiders? We didn't have there was not much that we really had to offer. So I think once Ben Johnson got hired, I thought just Pete was the best that we could get. And I think that Pete is going to, if nothing else, he's going to build that foundation for us, if nothing else. So, and I think, of course, that Geno trade was huge. Just kind of like you said, Anthony Patch, I think that's going to be significant. Just the way he kind of built that Eagles team. Those guys, everyone's daggone from the draft, and then they just kind of sprinkled some free agents, at the end. And that's how you should use free agency, just as a compliment to what you already got. That should not be your main focus in building a squad. So I love his approach. The Chip Kelly hiring, actually, at first I didn't like it because I wasn't a big Chip Kelly guy because of his people skills. But then I had to kind of take a step back and just realize if he's just being a wizard behind the scene, creating the offense.
What is Pete great at?
Exactly. He's good at the people part. He'll make sure that Chip stays reeled in. Chip, I just need you to draw up the plays, get our ballers a ball.
That's what he does. You can't deny Chip Kelly's been able to win, or not. He's been able to design really effective offenses with a multitude of different quarterbacks and a whole bunch of different talent around him. And I'm super excited to see what Chip Kelly can do.
Yeah, for sure. And then lastly, I think it's kind of underrated, but I really like to sign us drafting Darian Porter. I think he's going to be a dog. I know he's still raw, he's still green, but if he can develop, and it seems like he's kind of like a sponge, he picks up things quickly.
Agreed.
Him and JB, we got Bennett, I think, coming in year 3 or whatever he is. He had that sophomore, jump where he did well. And I think that continuity with Patrick Graham, really helped him. But I think though having those 2 young guys that can run the way they can run, our defense can get nice. So that excites me.
I expect our defense to be one of the better. Again, I think it's really going to come down to the defensive line. Because to me, what the Raiders are telling me right now, and I think that we do have a lot of super athletic, long, lanky corners. And, we used to say all the time last year on the Raiders Report, like, you should like the Cade Levon Jason signing because you should believe in Rob Leonard. You should believe in Patrick Graham. Exactly. You should like them going out and getting a guy like Darian Porter. And then if I'm sitting back, I'm going, Ja'Cory Bennett and DeCamerion Richardson are literally the prototype of cornerback that Pete Carroll would go out and get. You had a former first-round pick in Eric Stokes who, has had some issues staying healthy, but was able to stay healthy last season. Super competitive dude. And if you're able to get pressure with 4, maybe 5 on that defensive line, and we got one of the deepest defensive lines in the NFL if we're able to stay healthy, bring it back Adam Butler, bring it back Malcolm Kuntz for the price tag compared to what it would have cost for Spillane, Merrick, Hobbs. I'll pick Kuntz and Adam Butler every single day and twice on Sunday. But when you can get after the quarterback, that's going to be the bigger determining factor on how well our corners play, because they are super inexperienced, but you can't deny how athletic they are. And there's some serious upside there. You got to believe what Pete's doing. You got to believe in what our defense is doing.
No, I agree. I agree for sure.
Linebacker scares the hell out of me, though. I'm not.
Oh my God. Yeah, we'll get on that. We'll definitely get on that, man. Now that like kind of the dust is settled of all of offseason, do you think we've closed the gap enough as far as like the talent gap in the AFC West? Or you still think we're a couple years away, a couple drafts away?
We can definitely beat the Chiefs. And if there's one thing that I think the AFC West is trying to do, and I definitely think that the NFL is a copycat league. I say it all the time. And if I was the Raiders, I would look at what the Philadelphia Eagles just did, and I'd be like, all right, I'm going to try to replicate that. And then also, you know, if I'm John Spytek and Tom Brady, I'm going to look at what, you know, they did to beat Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, because I would look at every game in the regular season, throw it out the window. It doesn't matter. If you can't beat the Chiefs in the biggest game of the year, it doesn't matter. But Spytek, I think, has a blueprint of what he thinks is going to require to do that. And I think Philadelphia thinks that, you know, like they have a blueprint in order to do it. And I think like that's what the Raiders tried to do this season. But it's not only the Raiders. You know, I think that's what the Broncos have done. Build a great offensive line, try to get a running back, and just have a great defense. Like where the Chargers did. They went out and get Omari and Hampton, hire a guy like Harbaugh, great offensive line, run the football. And I think the Raiders are trying to do a similar thing with Genty, slow the game down. I know people think Chip Kelly is speed, and that's what he did at Oregon. But when you go look at his pace of play last season at Ohio State, he was actually one of the slowest paced coaches in terms of plays ran. Now, he also knew that he had the most talented offense, I think, in the country, and hit a home run at any given moment. I mean, it's just the truth. And, you know, Geno Smith's cousin's the best receiver in the country, and he's not even eligible to be drafted. But I do think Chip and what this Raiders team is going to try to do, and it's what the Chargers and Broncos are going to do, they're going to try to slow it down on offense, rely on a great defensive line to get after Mahomes, and that's how they're going to try to win. And that's what I think that this team's going to try to do, because instead of trying to find a quarterback that's you want to go bang for bang with Mahomes, that's like trying to draft a three-point shooter to go shot for shot with Curry. You're not going to win. So how do you win? You got to do something different. You got to be able to get after him, run the football. And I think, honestly, all three AFC West teams are trying to do that right now.
Yeah, for sure. And I think our recipe, at least when we gave the Chiefs the biggest issue, was, you know, getting after them, you know, with the four guys. And I think, you know, people don't realize how not having Malcolm Kuntz last year was such a huge deal, because everybody was talking about how he was going to have a big year. You know, I mean, hearing it from AP, hearing it from Marvin Lewis, Rob Ryan was talking about him. So like he had a strong camp. And I was really looking for him to kind of put it together, and it was sucked, you know, a couple days before the season started, gets hurt. But I think having him back is going to be significant. So I'm so excited to see what this front four can do. Because that's what you know, that's how you beat Mahomes, not necessarily blitzing them, but getting those four guys after him and then getting in coverage. So
it's a deep rotation, you know, like And I think the Raiders this year, again, they proved to me in the draft that, hey, everybody we're drafting this year is going to make sure that Ashton Genty is going to be the rookie of the year. And I think they kind of did that on the defensive line as well, where they were like, you know what? We're going to do everything in our power to make sure Max Crosby is the defensive player of the year, because re-signing Adam Butler makes Max better. Having Christian Wilkins on the interior makes Max better. Malcolm Kuntz, I don't care what anyone says about Tyree Wilson. I think he's going to really surprise some people this season. But that guy, he's going to help out, you know, Max. But then, you know, J.J. Pegues, Tonka Hemingway, extra depth there on the defensive line. The Raiders' offensive line, Caleb Rogers, Charles Grant, they have, I would say, 8 legit depth guys. And then the draft, they go out and they get Genty. You draft a hell of a blocking wide receiver, tight end type of tough mother effer and Jack Besh. You get an extremely athletic corner in Darian Porter. But then, you know, you also get a deep threat in Dante Thornton Jr. And the only 3 wide receivers in NFL combine history that are 6'4" taller, that ran a 4.3, 540 is Calvin Johnson, DK Metcalf, and Dante Thornton Jr. Like,
let's go. Let's go.
Off. Like, and I think when you just see everything they're doing, the picture to me is becoming clearer and clearer and clearer. And that's what I respect about this organization a lot more, because to me, they have a plan. They're executing it. And I like where we're at. We got to go extend Miller and Jacoby Myers. I hope that we do those 2 things before May 19th.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we have so much to be excited about. So definitely so
I'm
much.
hyped, dude. I'm sick right now.
Sick. So we kind of talked about it, before. So what are the two position groups that you're most concerned about, and why?
I'm still a little bit concerned about free safety. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, I like Isaiah Paul-Lamau a lot, but to me, he's better like as a safety number 3, safety number 2, instead of being like our true free safety. I would almost say it like I love Jacoby Myers, but if you told me he's got to be your number 1 wide receiver, I'd be, I'm like, all right, like I'm a little bit nervous about it. Yeah. I love Jeremy Chin, but to me, he's going to be the Cam Chancellor. He's going to be linebacker, strong safety hybrid. Yeah. And then, like, back then in the secondary, like, who's going to be the free safety? Is it going to be Trey Taylor, the Jim Thorpe Award winner, who's entering his second year? I don't really know. Yeah. Thomas Harper, I actually think low-key did a lot better than what people give him credit for last season. Maybe that's the plan. If it was up to me, I'd go out and try to get a Justin Simmons. I'd try to go out and get a Julian Blackman. I would try to go out and get a, maybe even a Quandre Diggs, somebody who's played 5 years for B. Carroll, because we've seen how much relationships matter. And we got $34-something million to do it, 5th most in the NFL. So it's not like, we're scraping and clawing. Like, we can go out and spend. I mean, if it was up to me, I would pull my fiance in Target, and I'm just not going to look at price tags. And I'm going to go out and I'm going to get a few players to make me better. You know what I mean? Like, I think we have the money to do it. Free safety and then linebacker as well. I like a Landon Roberts. He's a hit sticker. Yeah. Like, that's the type of dude that, I was when I was in 8th grade playing Madden. Just every time I'm coming down, I'm laying the hit stick. But then Devin White scares me if you're going to have him as an every down linebacker. If you want to be an edge rusher, if you want to allow him just be an athlete, I'm okay with that. But there's just a lot of unproven players. Tommy Eichenberg, I'm not really sure. Amari Burney, great athlete. I think he's better in special teams. The one guy that I'm looking out for, though, is Amari Gaynor. And I've heard from, just a few guys that he just looks different, and he's been doing a lot of the right things. And I actually didn't think that he should have been a UDFA coming out of North Carolina. But if there's one thing that our linebacker room needs, it's a cover guy. And honestly, I think Amari Gaynor might be the best coverage linebacker that we have on the team. And I don't know if he's a similar player to Nicholas Morrow, but I think Raider fans are going to respect Amari Gaynor the way that they did Nicholas Morrow at the end of his career, where he was a UDFA, got better and better and better. And he was never a star, but he was a reliable player. And that's what I'm hoping. But linebacker and free safety right now scare the hell out of me.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, linebacker. Because honestly, I like Devin White more than most people do. I think he still has some more left in the tank. I think having our front 4 is really going to help him kind of stay clean and kind of do what he does best. Given the opportunity to blitz and go sideline to sideline. So and plus, he knows what it looks like. He's played with with Tom Brady. Tom Brady knows what kind of player he is. So I'm not giving up on him just yet. But no, you're right. And I really like Roberts. But I still don't think we have the depth at linebacker at all. But I would say my other position is guard. I'm still worried about guard. Dylan Parham is just not it for me. I see a lot of people kind of still think he's going to start. I don't know. I think Meredith can hold it down. I'm okay with him. We could upgrade if possible, but I'm not too, mad at him. But then Alex Kappa, I don't know. We don't know what we're getting out of him. He's another guy where it's like, he got that Spy Tech connection, the Brady connection. He was actually in the huddle with Brady. So maybe last year was just kind of a fluke. We don't know. But that guard position really scares me. So I'll say those two are for me. So
yeah, I still think Parham is good enough where I think a lot of times also when you're a little bit undersized and you have as many changes as what Parham has had on the offensive line on top of just different offensive line coaches, I think it'd be a little bit of a difficult factor. Now with Chip, if he's going to run inside outside zone, which is typically like what he does, you need somebody that can be a little bit more powerful. Now, luckily for him, we got JPJ, and he's one of the best centers in the NFL. Yeah. I do wonder, what the Raiders' offensive line is going to look like. It sounds like they're very confident in DJ Glaze over there at the right tackle spot. But the only reason why, and this is just kind of what I'm hoping, where I was somebody that wanted them to go offensive line in round 1 because I also thought that running back was very deep. However, though, this is kind of, again, where I'm trying to paint this picture of what's the Raiders' plan is. They're like, all right, well, we're going to go out. We're going to get the player that we thought was the best on the board, a generational talent, which I know gets used a lot. But I do think Ashton Jeanty was the best player on the board overall. That I'll stand 10 toes on. But then what do you got to do? You got to upgrade your offensive line. If you don't go out and upgrade your O-line, you trade back a few times, and you just make sure that you have legit depth. Like, I think Jordan Meredith is a good offensive guard. We'll see what happens. I think Dylan Parham is a good offensive guard. We'll see what happens. DJ Glaze, good offensive guard. We'll see what happens. And then I think you say the same thing, though, about Charles Grant and Caleb Rogers, where you have 5 players that are hungry to keep it going. You know, Parham's also in a contract year. Like, he's got to be able to prove to teams out there that he deserves to get paid, because if he doesn't get paid, you know, like, it's hard for a guard to get another chance unless somebody really truly believes in you. Maybe New England would give him a shot. Maybe Carmen Bracillo with the Giants would give him a shot. But because those are 5 offensive linemen that I would all say they could start. Like, they could play. You might be having a good game here, but they could play. And I think that those 5 guys are going to make all 5 of that unit a lot better. And when you got just an entire unit of guys going out there and they're competing, I think it just makes your overall line better. And then when you have Colton Miller and JPJ, this offensive line, to me, I would rank right now as like 16th O-line in the NFL. But I think they have a chance to be like 12 or 11, maybe 10.
Really? Really? That high?
I mean, it's the depth to me. Like, this, starting offensive line, I think we're probably very middle of the pack. In all honesty, I think we're middle of the pack. But there's not many teams that I actually think have the depth that we do. Like, Caleb Rogers can do a multitude of things, right? Like, Caleb Rogers is somebody where, you know, in the NBA terms, if you got a 6-man that's as good as what Rogers is, like, that just makes your overall roster a lot deeper because he can do a bunch of different things. But, like, that's what the Raiders have right now. They have a bunch of depth guys, defensive line and on the offensive line, that can do guard, edge, defensive tackle. Like, they can do a bunch of things.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That's a good point. So who do you think our starting guards are going to be? You think Kappa's going to get the nod, or Parham?
And it's not what I would do, but the Raiders, to me, this offseason proved that when there is a relationship and they really want you, they're going to go out and they're going to get it done. Like, the very first move the Raiders made is they signed Kyle Phillips, wide receiver, the first ever recruit by Chip Kelly at UCLA. Yeah. You know, and I think, like, that's one of those moves that people might forget about, but I think he's a sneaky guy to make the 53-man roster. Next thing they did in free agency, 2-year, $11 million deal with Kappa. Now it's basically a 1-year prove-it deal because they gave him $5.5 million guaranteed, but, you know, they did that right away. What did they do next? Extension with Max Crosby, re-signed Adam Butler, trade for Geno Smith. Like, I think what they did early on was very telling of what their thought process was. And I do think Kappa will start. And then I think it's going to be somewhat of a battle between Jordan Meredith, Dylan Parham for that left guard spot, with maybe Caleb Rogers thrown in there. And then DJ Glaze, I think, is going to battle with Charles Grant. So that's kind of how I think that the offensive line is going to go. But then again, I do believe, now that I'm thinking about it, I do think that they said Grant's going to be on more of the left side and Caleb Rogers is going to be more on the right side. I do actually think I remember hearing that.
I can see that. And then, I mean, honestly, and then Thayer Mumford, I don't know. You know, I don't know if he's going to get lost in the sauce. So we'll see.
I could see the Raiders trading Munford for like a 2026 7th round pick. Yeah, just to give him like another shot somewhere else. And I don't know. It was not good last year.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I want to play a little game, man. It's called.
Do you mind if I play a game?
Oh yeah, let's play a game.
All right. So 2 things. One, Chat Sports. I work here at Chat Sports. We're called the Raiders Report. We are hiring. If anybody wants an opportunity to work with Jeremy Chuggs and I, it's chatsports.com/Raiders producer. We offer, 401k. We offer health benefits, free lunch every day. So we're a legit company, but you'd have to move down here to Dallas, Texas. If anybody's interested, go check that out. My question to you is, I asked you earlier what your biggest super chat ever was. If anybody here in the chat today bangs, and if you know what the Raiders Report is, you know what a bang is. If anybody bangs, I'll take us on a little tour here of Chat Sports. That way, if the new producer is watching, you get to see where you could potentially work at. So I want a record today. Highest super chat ever. It's a bang. If that happens, we're doing a Chat Sports tour. You get me for an extra 10 minutes. I'll stay a little later. Let's do it.
Let's go. I definitely want to see what that looks like. But yeah, man, if anyone's interested, man, how Chat Sports does it, how Mitch does it, they go hard in the paint. They work hard, they play hard, and they get it done. So if anyone's interested, if you guys are, I know there's some people in the Texas area, man. Is there what was the link again, or what was the
chatsports.com/Raiders producer. It's on my social media at Mitchell Renz 365. But I'll tell you this, like, even if you don't live in Dallas, Texas, you know, like I moved from Boston down here. I think Chat Sports pays better than, I would say, 90-95% of a lot of sports companies out there. Like I bet you we pay better than The Athletic. I bet you we pay better than Sports Illustrated. I think we pay pretty well. So it's not like one of those things where you got to live down here. It's, oh, I live in California. Yeah, we'll pay you good enough to move down here to Dallas. It's also a lot cheaper than this.
Nice.
But yeah, let's do it.
Sweet, good opportunity. All right, man. So I want to play a game. It's called Protect or Reject. So I'm going to name a few players, and I want to know, are you going to protect these guys and keep them on the team, or at least in their current role, or are you going to reject these guys and, you know, either demote them or trade them or whatever? So I'm going to name a couple people. First guy we're going, and shout out to Mark Davis. I love those two pictures of him. But Trey Tucker.
I would protect him, and I say that because I think he's going to offer you special teams value. And the other thing that Tucker does really well is he's a good blocker, so he's got that high school wrestling background. I know he's small, but I had a Raiders player tell me pound for pound he might be one of the stronger guys on the team. So I'm going to protect him because if you put him on the field, he can stretch the field. You can also put the ball in his belly, spread you out a little bit. You got to respect the speed. And if he's out there on the field, he will be a good blocker for Ashton Genty.
Okay. Do you think he's going to
though what they did, he should be nervous.
Right. That was my next question. Like, you know, I think, you know, just kind of what we brought in. Yeah, he definitely should.
If they got offered a 6th-round pick, I bet you they would trade him.
Okay.
I would want a 5th, but I could see 6th.
Yeah. Second person, Dylan Parham.
Oh boy. My answer is very similar here. Like, Parham should be super freaking nervous. And if the plan for the Raiders is to not keep him and give him a contract extension after this year, which I don't think it is, I would just trade him right now. He was actually one of my top players that I thought the Raiders could trade away. So I'll say this, I'm going to reject Parham because I would want the trade value right now. I think because he does play a bunch of different positions and he started in the NFL for 3 years. If your plan is to not start him this season, he's going to lose his trade value. So I would say sell now. Again, I like Parham. If he started, I wouldn't be mad about it, but I think the writing's on the wall with him by them going out and getting Caleb Rogers. Okay.
Let's go Tyree Wilson.
Oh man, Tyree's my guy. I busted Tyree's balls for this, and I don't know if he'd admit it, but I told him, I was like, dude, get your ass into Las Vegas and go work out with Max, because he works out down here in the DFW area. Now, like,
yeah,
you know, if you got your routine, you got your routine, but there's a part of me where I'm like, you know, go to Vegas. I from what I understand, he is 100% healthy. He looks really good. I want to say protect, and I only say that because he's in his 3rd year. And I don't think he was ever meant to really play. I think Chandler Jones was meant to play in year 1. He was just, you know, healing from that foot injury. But for Tyree Wilson, this is his prove-it year, because you can give him a 5th-year option. But if he doesn't go out there and he doesn't prove it this year, like, they're just going to move on from him. And I think he understands and knows that. And I've seen a very much more motivated Tyree Wilson from what I've seen in the past. So I am going to protect him because I do believe in building in the trenches. And he knows that it's put up or shut up time for him, right? Like, he's either going to turn into a player that's going to get another chance at making some big time money in the NFL, or he's going to be a castaway, and nobody wants to be a castaway.
For sure. Aiden O'Connell.
Ah, man, I am absolutely going to protect Aiden O'Connell. And I know some people think that I don't like Aiden. My point with Aiden is I think he's a good dude, but I think he's going to have a long, really successful career in the NFL as a backup. But I think also having a quarterback that has, you know, played in 20 games, has started in 17, has, you know, won some big games. Like, he's not somebody that I want out there as a starter, but I do think he is a really good backup behind Geno Smith. And I think he's also just a good person to be able to have next to Cam Miller. He's going to go out there and he's going to compete, but he's also there's not many quarterbacks that I actually think would help the guy in front of them. And, there's a weird job that needs to be had. Aiden's going to do that. Aiden's a professional through and through. So I would protect Aiden O'Connell because I think he's one of the better backup quarterbacks in the NFL, which is a extremely important position in the NFL.
Cool. Last guy, Michael Mayer.
Oh, boy. I'll tell you this, man. This one was probably the most difficult because if I knew exactly what was going on last season, it might change my answer. And I get people are dealing with difficult stuff, but at the same time, I think a lot of people deal with a lot of difficult stuff. And, I don't really get the opportunity to leave my job for that long and get paid that amount of money. So I think there's always a little bit of a different feeling that way. And that's just, the truth, right? At the same time, though, I do think our offense can be really good with Mayer. He was somebody that I thought should have been drafted in round 1. He's got to understand he's not going to be the tight end one with Bowers. But if, we talked so much about last season, the 12 personnel, I think that we should try to implement the 12 personnel. And I think the Raiders can do it in a very sneaky way this season with Mayer, where if he lined up as, your true tight end and you lined up Bowers as your other tight end, but you could also line him up in the slot as a wide receiver. And then you put Jack Besh and Jacoby Myers. Teams could look at that as 12 personnel. The Raiders could look at it as 12 personnel, or they could look at it as 3 wide, which I think when you have a guy that's as creative as Chip Kelly, he's going to be able to do a lot with that. And he's either going to be able to beat you with a pass there, or he's going to be able to run the rock, and you're not going to know if it's 12 personnel or 3 wide. And I would protect Michael Mayer. I really would, and I hope that we get the motivated Mayer that I want to see. I don't want the guy that I don't know what's happening, because I talked to Jeremy Fowler before the draft, and Fowler told me that he thought Mayer was the player, if a Raiders player was traded, could get dealt.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Salute to my boy Cheeto Linus, man. He said, protect Mayer. Thank you for the $4.99, man. He said, let's go Irish. You're about to see what a good OC in good OC in leadership, for sure. Yeah, Mayer. Everyone knows I'm not too big on Mayer, and I'm kind of like you, without knowing what what was the issue and why he left. I don't know, man. I understand everyone's kind of going through different things, but leaving your team out to dry like that kind of bothers me a little bit.
I've been getting asked a lot of questions about a lot of the comments like Josh Jacobs has been making. I think we also got to understand that everything that is said sometimes isn't always the truth. I get, and I'm not saying that what happened to Mayer isn't the truth, but I'm saying sometimes we're told things that obviously aren't the truth, right? We were told Devontae Adams was totally in on this team and he wasn't talking behind our backs, only to find out that he was talking behind our backs for a long time. You got to also understand, these guys are trying to save face, and they probably look at it's none of your business, and them lying, isn't a big deal. And I totally get that side of it, but I do stand on the Mayer situation last season was weird. And that's all I'll say. And weird doesn't happen. Weird with no information in the NFL doesn't happen unless people don't want you to know what's going on.
Exactly. Something for sure. I know I am running out of time. I just got a couple quick questions, and I promise.
I got you 10 more minutes. 10 more minutes. We're good.
All right, cool. So what? Okay, so how many rookies do you think are going to be a day 1 starter or week 1 starter?
Ashton Genty, yes. Jack Besh, yes. Darian Porter, yes. Caleb Rogers, no. Charles Grant, no. Dante Thornton Jr., maybe. I'll say Tonka, no. JJ Pegues, no. Tommy Malott, maybe, in terms of special teams. Cam Miller, no. Cody Lindenberg, I'll say no, but there's a chance there. Those are my answers. To me, Dante Thornton Jr., and I don't think that we got to look at him as somebody what did he have receptions? What did he have yards? To me, the way that I'm going to look at Dante Thornton Jr. is literally if Ashton Genty is averaging 4.5 yards per game, 4.5 yards per carry when he's not on the field, but he's averaging 5.0 when he is, to me, that's how that pick's got to make sense, and that pick's got to be what it was. Though I did get told, we got told this probably a week ago at Chat Sports, that there was a team trying to trade up for Dante Thornton Jr., and there was multiple teams trying to do it, and that the Raiders took him at number 4 because their mind was like, here's going to be a decoy that, averaged, I was thinking it was like 25.4 yards per catch. Like,
yeah.
And a gimmicky Tennessee offense when you add the quarterback that Geno Smith is, who literally statistically, according to Next Gen Stats, according to Warren Sharp stats, is the most accurate quarterback down the field in the last 3 years. And then you add how accurate he is with a guy like Jacoby who didn't have a drop, with Jack Besh who had 1 drop last season. When you start painting the picture, it's becoming a lot more clear, I think, what the Raiders are going to do.
No, for sure. For sure. I mean, just a threat of that. You hit a team, just a couple times early in the first quarter or something. Just the threat of that is making that defensive coordinator do something completely different. Now I'm taking a guy out the box. Now Genty has more room. Now, Jacoby and all of them can do more intermediate things. So for sure. Are there any UDFAs that you got your eye on? I shout out to my guy, Ja Joyner. I just had an interview with him earlier this week. I really like that kid, man. I think he has a shot of making a 53. Are there any UDFAs that you got your eye on?
So Joyner actually is the highest graded UDFA I thought that we had. He was somebody that Chat Sports, we had him graded as a 5th rounder. We thought he should have went in the 5th round. I know he's maybe not the most athletic guy compared to some of the other players the Raiders drafted. I think on his RAS score, he finished in like the 58th percentile, but really did have good production. And I think his relationship with Cody Lindenberg could potentially be one that matters, because I do think relationships, again, just matter so much to this organization. But I would watch out for Ja Joyner, especially if the Raiders don't want to deal with a headache, I'll call it, in Charles Snowden. Just he's got that, court case July 22nd. It's right before training camp. And if I was trying to get, my business together in my first year as a head coach and GM, you might not want to deal with some of that outside noise, though. I loved Charles Snowden, covering him all last season. He was somebody that everybody rooted for, but I could also understand them not wanting to deal with that. And I think, for a guy like Joyner, that could open the door. Laki Tassi was a player that I got a text about that said people don't realize how gigantic he is.
Man.
And I'll compare that to, I had the opportunity to meet Colton Miller, and, I've done a wing eating contest against Jermaine Illuminor Miller. I've gotten to meet, like Max Crosby in person is a lot bigger than what people realize, but Colton Miller was like legitimately, I was like, oh my God, like he made me feel like he could put me in his pocket. Laki Tassi was, I got a text that was like, people don't realize how big this guy is. So like that to me is an intriguing option.
Yeah.
I'll also say Mello Dotson, really good competitor, also not super athletic. Carter Runyon, he's a really, really interesting tight end prospect from Townsend.
Yeah.
And then it depends, again, what type of offense they want to run. But then there's another tight end fullback. His name's Pat Conroy. And out of all the tight ends in the NFL combine process, again, now he didn't go to the combine, but he did his testing at his school, which I know can always be looked at a little differently, but, he scored in the 99th percentile. And I do think if the Raiders wanted to use Brock Bowers as this true outside guy, because there was at times like where they would line him up at H-back and kind of let him be a Kyle Juszczyk at times. That's something what he did at Georgia. If this Pat Conroy, who is as athletic as what they're saying and who's played fullback and tight end, I almost wonder if they're like, you know what, we didn't go out and get a true number 1 like we tried in DK. So, Brock, you're going to just be the true number 1 this season, wide receiver, tight end, whatever the hell you want to call it. We're not really going to do the H-back stuff with you, but if we can go out and get a guy that can do it and just block and be a good athlete, and be a Kyle Juszczyk, Pat Conroy, I've been hearing some interesting stuff about him. And then one more. We'll go Greedy Vance from USC just because the nickel depth right now is a little bit concerning to me.
True. Okay. Sounds good. And then very last thing I want to do real fast, and then we'll wrap it up. Something called Mitch's Mount Rushmore.
I love this. It's cool.
So we're gonna so I'm just gonna go through just 4 categories, and I just want you to, it don't have to be in no order, of course, but just give me your favorites. They don't have to be the best, but give me your favorites.
Favorites? All right.
Yeah. So out of Raider coaches, who's your Mount Rushmore of Raider coaches? And so we'll just start there.
Oh boy. Got to put Tom Flores in there. Got to put John Madden in there. I'll put Pete in there. He fires me up already. And then the hard part about Gruden is when I first started doing my career, covering Gruden was so much fun. So I am going to say Gruden, which I think is going to really surprise some people out there, because I would never want him back as a head coach. This is literally just a selfish answer for somebody that did content and felt like that they found, something that they're going to do their entire life. Like, covering Gruden was awesome. Like, I can remember when we got featured on Hard Knocks, like the Raiders report that year, they got featured on Hard Knocks, and it looks like, Gruden's like watching our show. I'll say John Gruden. How about that? That might be a surpriser.
Okay. See, me, I was real big on Gruden 1.0. Gruden 2.0 was a little rough for me. It was a little rough. Yeah. But all right, let's go just Raider players. And again, they can just be your favorite, and you can just stick to players that you actually had a chance to see, so you don't have to go back in the day with no Jim Otto and all those, like, guys that you had a chance to see.
I would say current Raiders players, Max, I'll say current guys.
Yeah, they don't have to be like playing right now. Just it could be.
If it was current guys, it's JPJ, Brock Bowers, Ashton Genty, Max Crosby. If it's old school guys, Bo Jackson, Howie Long, Charles Woodson.
It's a good list.
And then our big guy at the Raider Sports, name's Raider Ron. His favorite player is Jim Otto, so I'll go Jim Otto.
Okay, nice. Raiders' biggest bust. We can go on for that.
How much time we got? We doing another hour? I'm not even gonna. Jamarcus is the most obvious one that it's not even fun to put him in. So let's just he's been dragged through the mud enough. For me personally, and it's just I'll do it based on, like, again, for me doing this show as long as I have.
I know who
Damon Arnett's got to be
on
there.
To say, I know you hated Damon Arnett.
Damon Arnett was up there. I'll go with Henry Ruggs, which I know he might not have been one, but I wanted CD Lamb.
Yeah, me too.
Alex Leatherwood, because when I went back and I watched my draft process, I said I wanted Christian Darrisaw, so that one stings still. And then we got to do Klee. Like, Klee was a good dude, but at number 4 overall, that one that one was tough. So those are going to be my answers.
There you go. And
so Jonathan Abram deserves to be on that list too.
Yeah. Final question. Who are your favorite non-Raider players growing up that you like from any team, any era?
Drew Brees, I'll throw out there quickly because I love what he did for the city of New Orleans and a town, that kind of gave up on after Katrina. And let's face it, the Chargers gave up on Brees. And also, we had the opportunity at Chat Sports. Megan Payton, Sean's daughter, used to work here at Chat Sports like 2 years ago. So it was honestly really cool just hearing. I know it kind of honestly stings now that Sean's with the Broncos, but it was really cool hearing some of her stories about, Drew and how awesome of a human being he is. So I'll say Brees. Now, it's a lot easier to say Tom Brady. I've forgiven the Tuck rule as far as I'm concerned. I love that he's on our side. And I think anybody that says that they wouldn't want to shake hands with Tom Brady, either you are the biggest liar ever, or you're just I don't even know how to – your Lord Buddy Bear is probably the only other person. I would go with other players, guys that I love, respect their game. I'll give a shout out to my guy Chris Ivory. This is a totally random one, but when I used to work for the Jets as an intern, I used to be one of the t-shirt guys. The guy who I was always responsible to hang out with was Chris Ivory, and super cool dude. Honestly, one of the you see some of these guys and they're just massive human beings. Then you don't realize that they're just normal dudes that they're just showing up to work. And one of my coolest Chris Ivory stories, again, this back in 2013 on the Jets. Some guy top row took off a yarmulke, frisbee styled it, threw it to Chris. Chris snagged it, signed it, and tried to throw it back. It went back like a knuckleball, but they handed it back up to the guy, and he's like, "Dude, that's the first yarmulke I've ever signed." And it was just it was like he's been throwing them all the time. It was such a cool thing. I saw them do that. And then I'll go with Peyton Manning. I think Peyton Manning, his mindset is very similar to me, where at his Hall of Fame speech, he was like, I wasn't the most athletic. I wasn't the best quarterback, but I felt like nobody was going to outwork me. And, I take a lot of pride in that where, in sports, like you got to bring that hustle. And I, take a lot of pride that we've been able to put out a video every day for the last 5-6 years. And, I think anybody that does what they do, like what I'm about to say is not a knock on you, Chris, but like, I feel like I'm the best in the world at being able to talk about the Raiders. And, I feel like when I do this, like, I don't want anybody to outwork me, but like, if you don't have that mindset, then, like, why are you actually doing it? But for Peyton, I'd say Peyton Manning.
No, that's awesome. Those are 4 great ones. And Ed, I appreciate all that. And I'm letting you know I'm small time right now, but I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you, man. One day I'm gonna be up there with you, man. But Mitch, man, I really appreciate you taking your time to come chat with me. And one, just want to give you your flowers, man. You definitely are someone that, earlier on, I was kind of watching and just, like, man, this guy really gets after it. You make it fun. And you were someone that kind of made me like, man, I want to figure out a way, a structure to kind of have some fun and have my own group. So keep doing it, keep crushing it. And and another thing is you're just so humble. There's a lot of content creators that just wouldn't even take the time to meet with people that have less subscribers in them. And I've seen you do it so many times. You've partnered with guys that are on my, in kind of on my syndicate and my team. And, we really appreciate you, man. So keep up the good work. And we all, appreciate what you're doing for Raider Nation, man.
I mean, I think it's always cool, to like hear like stories like that. But, people always got to realize like, I was also at where you're at. Right. And
yeah,
like I can remember doing podcasts. I literally did a podcast in a closet for probably like 2 years. The old podcast I used to do was called Gridiron Expert. This is way back in the day when I used to do fantasy football stuff. But, like if you love it and it makes you happy, I think like that's what it's about. And, there's just so much stuff going on in the world. I'll be real. I don't pay really attention to politics. I don't pay attention to a lot of stuff going outside. But like I want people to know, like when they pull up to the Raiders report, whatever you're going on, like, hey, man, if it's an hour, it's 2 hours, like let's have a good time. And I'm a Raiders fan. I wasn't born one, but I'm a Raiders fan because the first time I went out to Oakland, I mean, it was one of the most humbling, unbelievable experiences. People showed me nothing but love. Yeah. And it kind of reminded me, like, again, I'm like small town Pennsylvania guy. I went to a Penn State game when I was a kid.
Oh, you're a Midwest guy too? Okay.
Like, yeah, I'm a Danville, Pennsylvania. You've ever heard of it? Shout out to the 570. But super, super small town vibes. So I went to Happy Valley for a whiteout game, and I was like, dude, I'm a Penn State fan. Yeah, I have not experienced anything even similar to that until I went to Oakland in 2019 for the FAB game, Monday Night Football, and just seeing like, J-Lot from coming in on the BART, walking through the fence, just the high hopes of the game and the high hope smells that you get from just walking through Oakland. But dude, people were handing me, like, there was a guy handing me a tomahawk steak. I have a picture of it. There was a guy, he handed me a lobster tail. Like, people were feeding me food, drinks, like chugging beers. And at that time, I think I had like 16, 17, 18,000 subs. And the amount of people that like showed me love and respect was unbelievable. And now, I love Raider Nation. Like, it is my second family. I truly mean that. Like, the other day, my dad was at work, and a guy who he just working, like he's working, he works in Pennsylvania. He was like, "Are you Papa Renz?" And like people notice my dad, and like the fact that we're kind of getting to that point now where people recognize my dad. Like I love Raider Nation, man. Like I really truly do. So when you gave me the invite, I always try to find time. It's just sometimes my schedule is a little bit difficult because I do a lot more than just Raider stuff at Chat Sports, which is maybe something that not everybody knows.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, I appreciate it, man. ShieldSquad, man. Make sure you guys always check out Mitch and his show. He's always doing, fire content. And as you guys know, he also has an open position. So if you guys are interested, reach out to him, man. Cool.
Please. Yes. I want somebody that's going to bring it. Like, if you're not going to bring it, don't even apply. And that's just the honest truth, where you got to bring it. Like, if you watch today's show and you felt like you learned something, like, I learned a few things about Chris, which is cool, but I think, you got to be able to bring that type of energy, that type of knowledge. And, it's not built for everyone, but like, that's what I'm looking for. I want someone that's a go-getter. So if you watch the show and you tell me about it, that tells me you're watching a Raiders show on a Saturday. Like, I want a sicko like you, like, it's beautiful outside. I want to talk Raiders. Let's do it.
Let's go. All right, Raider Nation, man. As I always say, players and coaches come and go, but we must always protect the shield. You guys be safe. Love you guys. Mitch, appreciate you, man. We be them Raiders. We be them Raiders.
Raiders. We be them Raiders, just